Alright, the Prague Pro is in the history books. Martin Fitzwater earned his 2025 Mr. Olympia qualification by winning the show. Chris Bumstead took a very respectable second place in his open debut, and Shaun Clarida secured third place, looking fantastic. Just like I did for the prejudging, I want to go through all the mandatory poses for the finals in HD footage and see what we can learn. All three of them improved since the prejudging, so this should be fun. We have the complete last callout, with each of the top three taking their turn in the middle. Now, before I start the comparison, I want to quickly show you the scorecard. Apparently, Martin unanimously won both prejudging and the finals, getting straight first places. Sibam got straight second places for both rounds, and Shaun got straight thirds for both rounds. In my opinion, I do agree that Martin looked great in the finals, as we're about to see, but I truly have an issue with him having a perfect score for the prejudging, but that's another story. Front double biceps. What we really have here are indeed three guys from three different divisions. You can clearly tell Shaun Clarida is from 212. I believe he's even under 200 pounds here, maxed out for his frame. Comparing Martin to Chris, even though Chris looks fuller than he did at the Olympia in classic physique and he surpassed the classic weight cap here, he still looks like a classic competitor next to Martin, which is perfectly understandable since Sibam only did a few weeks of prep for this open show. Conditioning wise, they're all in shape here, but I believe Chris and Shaun are more polished than Martin. Now, when it comes to the focal points of this pose, namely the arms and the overall taper, I think Martin is actually the least impressive here, with the best probably being Shaun pound for pound, but he's giving up too much size. Ultimately, I would say this pose is between Martin and Chris, and unlike the prejudging where Martin was off, in my opinion, I think he's the favorite here. Front lat spread. In this pose, Martin doesn't have the bone structure to do battle with Chris Bumstead, whose physique looks like it's been designed for such a pose. Everything falls perfectly in the front lat spread for Sibam. He's got that wide structure, huge lats, and tiny waist coupled with a semi-vacuum, which is always excellent in this pose. Pound for pound, Shaun Clarida's flow is better than Martin's, but again, he's just too small in comparison. The difference in flow needs to be much bigger to compensate for the lack of overall size. So Chris Bumstead wins the front lat spread, Martin takes second, a second closer to the third place Shaun Clarida than to Chris Bumstead in my opinion. Side chest pose. Yet again, Shaun's the clear third, not only because of size. One of his weaknesses is his chest thickness, and you can tell it's the case in this pose. Between Martin and Chris, we have a story similar to the front double biceps. They both look great, but truth be told, they look great for different divisions. Sibam looks perfect, but it is noticeable that side by side with a top open competitor, he gives up too much size. Martin looks great from the side. He's got the fullness, the roundness through the chest, arms and shoulders, making Chris Bumstead look flat in comparison. Just like the front double, this pose could go either way, depending on the criteria, but as for the open division criteria, Martin can't lose this one, in my opinion. Rear double biceps. Once again, all three look excellent, but we can clearly see that Chris Bumstead needs more muscle tissue through that back. He doesn't have the depth the other two have. And speaking of the other two, during the live stream, I was so impressed with Shaun Clarida in the back double biceps, and I see the same thing here. In my opinion, Shaun beats Martin in this pose. Yes, he's still smaller, but in this call out with him on the side, he looks even smaller than he is. Check out this round when Shaun was in the middle. Look at that back. He's got the same thickness through the back as Martin, but he also has the width through the lats that Martin lacks, along with better bicep peaks from the back, which should matter as well. So in this pose, Sibam is a clear third and first place is contested between Martin and Shaun. If you are enjoying my content, consider subscribing. A big portion of you, around 73%, are not subscribed, and it would mean a lot to me to reach that 30k subs milestone by the end of this year. I appreciate it, guys. Back lat spread. In this pose, things get more complicated because Chris Bumstead comes back into the conversation, literally dominating Martin when it comes to the lats. Martin is still thicker through the middle back, but I think C-Bum has him beat here overall. Martin's lats are rounded up to the inside, if that makes sense, which clearly shows he needs to work more on his overall lat development. Shaun Clarida has the most complete back, but in this other back pose, the lack of overall size is more noticeable than in the previous pose. Since C-Bum shortened the gap in terms of development and overall look, Shaun might fall to third again. Between Martin and Chris, everybody kinda gave Martin the back poses by default, but this HD footage shows a possible different story being closer between them. Side triceps. This is a pose where Chris Bumstead lost ground at this show in my opinion, mostly due to execution. He had this approach of squeezing down for a second and then immediately going for the front tricep stance, which I think made him lose this pose. Now, Martin was pretty hard to beat in the side triceps regardless. His overall roundness and fullness came in full effect again. He also has the meatier triceps and the better execution. Shaun Clarida looks nice, dry and vascular, but he's not as good from the side, lacking chest thickness, a tight waist and overall size. Abs and thighs. When Martin is on, he's one of the best in the world in this pose and very hard to beat. He indeed has a little split between the abs, but his abs are carved out of stone including the obliques. His waist is tight and his quads are among the best in the world, if not the very best today. Chris has a great look, especially if you consider the vacuum in the abs and thighs. He's got the best vacuum of the modern era of bodybuilding for sure. But again, if Martin is on, based on open criteria, he's hard to beat. C-Bum looks more beautiful, but Martin is better. Shaun is a distant third, as the abs and thighs is not his best pose. Most muscular. I thought Chris Bumstead looked excellent in this pose and could beat a lot of open guys just as he looked at this Prague Pro, but his misfortune was that Martin is one of the best in the world in the most muscular. Remember that Tyler Mannion gave him this pose against Nick Walker in New York, and we all know Nick has one of the best most musculars of all time, I would say. Anyway, back to this comparison, C-Bum lacked the size to go against Martin in this pose, that's for sure. As for Shaun, besides the size issue, his weaker chest comes into play again, and he's a far third. So as a conclusion, now that the dust has settled and I've analyzed the HD footage, I can really see why Martin Fitzwater won this show. It was basically what we all expected before the show started. We were all aware that C-Bum would not be able to match his overall size and fullness, but my issue remains with the prejudging. I really thought Chris Bumstead was at his best possible and tightened up as the show progressed, while Martin was a total mess. He was sweating like crazy. I even saw people online calling him Martin Holds Water, and I also thought he had a gut issue not too many people talk about. So I do agree that Martin decisively won the finals, as I've shown you in this video, but him getting a perfect score for the prejudging is still bullshit to me. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video for the algorithm and subscribe to help me reach 30k subs by the end of the year. See you in the next one.